This is ABC-7 Extra.
Welcome to ABC-7 Extra. Good evening. I'm Stephanie Valle in for Sewell Signs. For the next half hour, we're talking about social media and its detrimental effect on developing minds. We have all suspected that too much social media can be toxic, especially for teens and kids. But an investigation by the Wall Street Journal reveals some startling research that puts a figure on just how bad Facebook and Instagram are for a girl's body image. And worse yet, the social networking giants knew all of this and downplayed the problem to the public. The investigation was one part of a multi-piece report on the social media giant called the Facebook Files. The Wall Street Journal reports that researchers inside Instagram, which is owned by Facebook Incorporated, was studying how Instagram affects young users. And here's what those internal researchers found in March of 2020. 32% of teen girls said when they felt bad about their bodies, Instagram made it worse, meaning Instagram makes body image issues worse for 1 in 3 teen girls. Unprompted, teens blame Instagram for increases in the rate of anxiety and depression. Among teens who reported suicidal thoughts, 6% of American users trace the desire to kill themselves to Instagram. The Wall Street Journal reported that the tech giant knows about its impact on teens and their mental well-being, yet makes minimal efforts to address these issues and plays them down in public. And that Instagram seems to be more harmful due to the social comparison aspect of the platform and the tendency to share only the best moments, a pressure to look perfect, and that it's an addictive product. More than 40% of Instagram's users are 22 years old and younger, and about 22 million teens log onto Instagram in the U.S. each day, according to the research. Growing up in the age of social media is vastly different than anything other generations experienced. I met up with 3 16-year-old 11th grade girls who attend the Young Women's Academy in Central El Paso. I wanted to hear what they thought about the research findings and to find out how they're maneuvering through social media.
It really doesn't surprise me. I know what people put out on social media. I mean, it's so easy to look at it and just get down on yourself, seeing this perfect woman, all skinny, and you want to be that person so much. I was bullied when I was younger, so I try to stay away from social media as much as possible because I don't want to get myself into like the little rabbit hole of trying to have the perfect body.
So your thought process was that you didn't want to put yourself in a position where more people could Here, talk about that.
Yeah, I try to stay away from social media so that way no one could really comment on how I look, or even just to see how other people look and just try to put that image onto myself.
Do you ever feel yourself, if you have friends who have social media, do you ever find yourself like kind of wishing to be on it, or so glad you're not?
I do sometimes wish I could be on it just to get myself out there. But then sometimes I see my friends get down on themselves, so I try to stay away from it.
When you see your friends get down on themselves, what is it that usually happens? Like, what usually starts that process?
It could be from a post or like what they've posted online, and just seeing them get down, like trying to talk bad about themselves. It's very painful to myself personally because I love them.
I was just curious about how you feel when you're using Instagram for a long time. Do you ever feel like better or worse about yourself?
So I've taken like a thing where I don't like to look at my social media that much. It wasn't much to do with any like self-esteem. It was just the same thing over and over again, I felt like. And there were times where I'm like, man, I really wish I could go to this place because this person's going to it. So it was like that jealousy that kind of spread a little bit. And so I was like, I need a break. And it's just been a pattern or a habit not to go on my Instagram and Snapchat that much unless I'm messaging people. But every now and then I'll like go ahead and check up on my friends or family members and just see what they're doing. So I'm not like completely excluded from the world. I'm just keeping within myself. And every now and then I do this thing where I post like once a month, or like post once every once or twice. I mean, post every 2 months. So that way I'm still like sharing myself so that way people can see, but like I'm also keeping to myself and I don't like overshare something.
Instagram is kind of different from all the other social media apps. A lot of pictures of like models and, you know, like how to dress, like what styles you need. So a lot of it is kind of just all permanent. And on Instagram, you can always go back and look at it. Whereas like Snapchat, like the stories delete after like 24 hours. So it's always there.
Do you ever feel yourself getting sucked into that image that they put out there on Instagram?
You know, once in a while, I can feel like the stress of, you know, having that social standard and that beauty standard. But, you know, it comes down to who I am and like my morals and being confident in myself enough to realize like, hey, this is fake, this is edited, like not everything on the internet is real. So it just comes down to that factor.
Do you ever find maybe some of your friends don't handle it as well as you do?
Not, my friends are pretty much like in the same realm as me, whether like it comes down to their self-image. But my younger sister, she does have like she sees it, and you know it's like hard for her because she's younger. And I don't think that established bond with like my parents and like, hey, social media is like not always what you seem. So I can definitely see that. And you know, it hurts to see that my younger sister, I think she's beautiful inside and out. So to see that self-image being, you know, kind of broken down is kind of painful. But, you know, it comes down to talking to her like, hey, like you need to be confident in yourself. Like you need to know your self-worth enough to realize like this is fake and what you have is real and genuine. I believe that it's totally up to the individual user. It comes down to your confidence and what you know and reality. So if you like see a bunch of stuff that like, let's say some information put out about COVID-19 and you know it's fake, you know, it comes down to whether like you're gonna believe it or not. So I can definitely agree that it comes down to the user.
Would you like to see Facebook or Instagram do something to change how their technology works?
That would be, that would help. That would help, you know, at least lessening the weight of that social like standard on girls, and not only girls, like men too, but I think it could definitely lessen the stress. But as I said before, it definitely has a lot of weight on whether the person is like believing what's on the internet or not.
Facebook's vice president of global affairs wrote a blog in response to the Wall Street Journal investigation, saying at the heart of this series is an allegation that is just plain false, that Facebook conducts research and then systematically and willfully ignores it if the findings are inconvenient for the company. The truth is that research into the impact social media has on people is still relatively nascent and evolving, and social media itself is changing rapidly. Some researchers argue that we need more evidence to understand social media's impact on people. Each study has limitations and caveats, so no single study is going to be conclusive. You're watching ABC-7 Extra. When we come back, I talk in depth with a psychiatrist about the effects of social media on our youth and what can be done to curb the threat. You're watching ABC-7 Extra, where news comes first.
At Long John Silver's, our legendary lobster bites are back with a delicious vengeance. Prepared with herby, buttery goodness and fried to golden perfection, they're the perfect delicacy as part of your family feast. Order online at longjohnsilvers.com. Fish, yeah.
I think we can all agree that food is a necessity of life. Hi, I'm Susan Goodell. Many of us are fortunate to be able to take food for granted. At the food bank, the people we serve are not so fortunate. Too often, the people we serve must make difficult choices: rent, medicine, or having food. As our community recovers from the pandemic, the food bank is here to ensure our most vulnerable neighbors have the food they need. Please support us in this critical mission. Please make a donation today at elpasoansfightinghunger.org.
Hello everyone, I'm Estela Casas.
And I'm Stephanie Valle. ABC-7 is thrilled to join forces with Albertsons and the Stand with Estela Casas Cancer Foundation.
Please help us provide El Pasoans and Las Cruces with critical assistance during Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
You can donate right at the keypad once you finish shopping. Every dollar stays local.
Thank you for your generous support of cancer patients right here in the borderland.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for waking up with us.
The Borderland knows. Good Morning El Paso is the place for complete coverage of overnight breaking news.
We had breaking news from the ABC-7 Alert Center.
Up to the minute weather and traffic on the 7s.
All westbound lanes are closed.
Be careful as you're headed off to work this morning.
But you already knew that, didn't you? Everyone does. In fact, more people watch Good Morning El Paso than all 5 of its competitors combined. ABC-7's Good Morning El Paso, where news comes first. When the heavens opened and El Paso streets filled with water, ABC-7 was there to warn you and keep you informed. First to alert, always tracking. The ABC-7 Storm Track Weather Team, keeping your family safe.
I'm joined now by Dr. Marcelo Rodriguez-Chevres. He is the Chief Medical Officer and a psychiatrist at Emergence Health Network. Thank you for talking with me about this topic.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Dr. Rodriguez-Chevres, the research was released to Facebook leadership a year and a half ago, and it's pretty unnerving. The one fact that sticks out to me is that teens blame Instagram for increases in the rate of anxiety and depression. That reaction, according to the research, was unprompted. So I would like to get your reaction to that fact.
Well, I wouldn't just focus on Instagram. I think social media in general perhaps is taking away some of the attributes that can contribute to mental health, especially in that population, especially on teen girls, which obviously as they are precisely in a process of growth and finding identity, and the social contact is so important to them. Start sacrificing other things that can be so critical for that, precisely that well-being, such as lack of sleep because they're spending too much time in social media. Perhaps they don't exercise. You know, the cyberbullying we've been hearing about, which is a reality as well. So, and not to mention, to add to that, we cannot, in a sense, measure in any accurate sense how many of those girls are actually already suffering from some underlying anxiety, depressive type of disorders that are being enhanced precisely by so much time spent with social media, including Instagram, obviously.
And I'm obviously not asking you to violate any confidentiality of your patients, but have you noticed more people coming to you with mental health issues that are directly related to social media consumption?
Oh, definitely. And I'm pretty sure my peers have had as well. And precisely the timing perhaps has a lot to do with it too, with the isolation, oftentimes imposed or voluntarily done or so. And then the social media represents that point of contact, which might have a positive impact in one sense, but it's like anything else. You cannot overdo it. You have to avoid extremes. And girls have been found to use social media a lot more than boys.
I want to refer to the Wall Street Journal article, which says this: the features that Instagram identifies as most harmful to teens appear to be at the platform's core. The tendency to share only the best moments, a pressure to look perfect, and an addictive product can send teens spiraling towards eating disorders, an unhealthy sense of their own bodies, and depression. Now, that's according to the internal research done in March 2020. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, it would make a lot of sense because oftentimes, and I've heard this from some of my patients as well, is that they actually want to, in a sense, pretend, and they have the opportunity with social media to actually perhaps look at the most perfect image or angle or picture, or some people might even put a picture that is not their own if they're not really known by the person on the other end. So that this can very well cause issues of self-esteem. And with anxiety, it's common, especially in young girls, to look at that image in reference to their diet, their nutrition, or lack of, I should say. And then it becomes this cycle that actually can fit into obviously underlying type of issues related to not only self-esteem, but perhaps some anxiety or insecurity issues that they're not really dealing with appropriately, nor are they searching the right sources to do that.
I think an older generation might have a tougher time understanding how people can be so affected by what they see on their phones. So can you give us your analysis of why those things that we're talking about that populate Instagram seem to cause such a negative reaction in young teens?
Well, precisely because, in a sense, they want to compete. They want to look prettier or have, the better house or the home or, and then they start forming their values based on that rather than other kinds of things. And in fact, there's research that shows that not only girls, but people that focus more on such material issues are unhappier than people that actually just cherish a simple life and simple things to look for.
And Instagram filters can lighten or brighten skin. They can thin out faces and bodies. So this goes back into the self-image. What can that kind of body-altering technology do to one's self-image?
Well, precisely because they might be actually producing what they might want to look like or be, and then in the process be disappointed that they're not. And that in itself can lead to bouts of depression, anxieties, even death wishes, even suicidal thoughts, which unfortunately on that population, in boys and girls, tends to be rather alarming.
The Facebook CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, has repeatedly said that social media creates connection, which can have a positive effect on mental health. Would you say that's also true?
Well, I don't doubt there's an element of that, but again, it's a matter of where you draw the line, especially for the younger population. I would put a lot of responsibility on parents as well, and we see it all the time when we go to restaurants, now that we can go sometimes or whatever, or even walking through a particular place, the office or whatever, where the teenagers are usually kind of glued to the phone, and it's usually related to social media. It's not really that they're kind of checking out how mom or dad are doing, or the other way around as well, because again, some limits have to be put in place in order to understand what could be healthy and what could be a damage to such young population that is basically growing in many ways, physically and emotionally.
Thank you, Doctor. We are talking with Dr. Marcelo Rodriguez-Chevres, a psychiatrist and the CMO of Emergence Health Network. We're going to hear more from him about what he would like to see change and what you can do to help your loved one. We are back with more ABC-7 Extra after this break.
No matter what your business is, you want it to be profitable. As the expert on what your company needs to succeed, take marketing into your own hands and create your own success. Reach your business goals by taking advantage of ProLink, our premium business page option at Borderland Local Links. Only $99 for the entire year. Customers are looking for you. Make sure you connect with them through Borderland Local Links. Simplify your marketing plan with a premium business page at borderlandlocallinks.com.
El Paso, your food bank needs you now. The El Pasoans Fighting Hunger Food Bank needs volunteers to assist and distribute boxes of food for seniors, children, and families. You can also donate money. Each dollar provides 7 meals. Volunteer, donate, call. El Paso, your food bank needs you now. Learn more about the El Pasoans Fighting Hunger Food Bank at 298-0353. The El Pasoans Fighting Hunger Food Bank, 298-0353. Online at elpasoansfightinghunger.org.
The Borderland is strongest when we support each other. That's what Borderland Local Links is all about. Connect with your favorite restaurants, check out activities your family can enjoy, preview upcoming sports and entertainment events. It's all right at your fingertips. Just go to kvia.com and click on Local Links right there at the top of the page, or scan the QR code on the screen with your phone. Borderland Local Links, supporting local business, connecting you to things that make life better.
That last bite had just the right everything. Bacon, cheese, and roasted heat from Hatch Green Chilies. Perfect, right down to the first bite. Good thing there's a Hatch Green Chili Bacon Burger at Whataburger. Available by dine-in, drive-thru, curbside, and delivery.
This Halloween, double your nightmares. presents two haunted houses of terror. New at 7th Park Mall. The Haunted Theater, East Side, Montana. The fields have eyes. Get all the scary details. KLQ.com.
Good evening and welcome back to ABC-7 Extra. I'm Stephanie Valle. We are talking about social media and its effect on teens tonight. And I am joined by Dr. Marcelo Rodriguez-Chevres. He is the Chief Medical Officer and a psychiatrist at Emergence Health Network. So the bigger issue that was uncovered by the Wall Street Journal investigation is that Facebook was aware of the negative effect of its product. And Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut told the Wall Street Journal this, that Facebook seems to be taking a page from the textbook of big tobacco, targeting teens with potentially dangerous products while masking the science in public. So as a mental health expert, what would you want to see done by lawmakers and social media to protect our kids?
Well, there needs to be a way to control that, to, in a sense, monitor it. So, because I can see his point, you know, in reference to actually advertising and advertising leading to sales and looking at the bottom line, which unfortunately or fortunately, because it's the reality of things, is where these companies are basing their motivation, interest, and so forth. And obviously, us as parents and just as a regular community member, we should be able to assume that responsibility. You know, it kind of hits home because obviously I have, well, they're grown already, but I have 5 children now. I have 5 sons. And I know that as a parent, that concerns me. As a professional in mental health and dealing with a lot of these people that come to us for help and guidance, it's critical to be able to guide them in reference to where to get the right, accurate information.
And the Wall Street Journal report also stated that researchers found teens wanted to spend less time on Instagram, but lacked the self-control to do so. So this goes back to what you were talking about, but what can parents do to help their kids?
Well, they need to monitor the time, obviously, they spend on social media, you know, and it's believed that for kids or adults, for that matter, that are getting in there 3 or more times, that's excessive. When we know, again, that we see this happen constantly, oftentimes at the sacrifice of some family time or a nice conversation over dinner, or just more instructive, constructive type of activities. You know, I mentioned exercise. That's a classic one. And oftentimes they might stay up even when parents believe they're asleep just to be in social media. So that sacrifices sleep as well. And they don't realize at that age, and I know I was guilty of that at that age, I thought sleep was a waste of time. And I didn't have social media back then. I didn't even have a phone for that matter. So I could just imagine where they actually get caught up on this. And you very well know that it's been considered to even be an addiction because of the precisely difficulties of letting go. It's like it's a magnet, like it's pulling you in, it's calling you, and you have to obey to that. And anything that can be harmful and be excessive, including social media, obviously can lead to those bad habits, if you will, that lead to some kind of addiction.
Are there some telltale signs that parents or even fellow teens should look for if they suspect their loved one is in need of help?
Yes, obviously. One of the things I would look at is precisely how well they're sleeping, how is their nutrition, are they losing weight, are they failing in school, are there bouts of irritability, anger, are they acting out, perhaps oftentimes without any particular good reason and so forth, changes in those behaviors, in mood, and even changes in their own priorities in life, which start perhaps being obvious to a looking eye. Because if you're looking the other way, obviously you're not going to be able to observe that.
And what would you tell people who hesitate to give validation to their concerns, like to the parent or friend who doesn't want to reach out for help because they think they might be overreacting?
That is a very fine line. And even before all of this, even before social media and so forth, that was, because I've been practicing long enough, that it was an issue related to, it's a stage, they'll get over it, it's hormones, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, not to take anything away from any of that. Those might be factors. But we actually have to educate ourselves well enough to understand what might be in that range that we might consider acceptable or norm, in parentheses, or what could be excessive and harmful.
Dr. Marcelo Rodriguez-Chevres, a psychiatrist and the CMO of Emergence Health Network, thank you for your time.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Take care.
And if you need help or you're looking for help for a loved one, you can reach out to the Emergence Crisis Hotline at 915-779-1800 or the toll-free crisis hotline that is 1-877-562-6467. Here's the fallout from the Wall Street Journal report. The social media giant is pausing a new app it was creating for children. The head of Instagram said last week it is pausing its work so that it can listen to concerns from parents, researchers, and safety experts. And in a couple of days, a Facebook whistleblower will testify at a Senate hearing. Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut said the whistleblower will discuss the social media company's so-called toxic effects on young users. The bipartisan hearing is organized by the subcommittee of the Senate Commerce Panel. It is set for October 5th. Count on ABC-7 and KVIA.com for updates on this developing story. Thank you for joining us. I'm Stephanie Valle, and this has been ABC-7 Extra.